we're eating these foods that are literally creating this chronic disease epidemic. And when we get people off of them, it doesn't take long. When you have a medically designed sugar detox, like a sugar rehab, and you reset your body, it's amazing how quickly the cravings go away, your energy comes back. If you do the right thing and put in the right healing foods and you take out the foods that are harmful, your body will actually reset very quickly. Most people don't realize how few days away they are from health and happiness, how quickly their body can heal and repair and reset.
Many of us know the best foods to eat to get us healthy. The challenge is many of us also struggle with food addictions which prevent us from implementing these recommendations. Hi, this is Dr. Mercola helping to take control of your health, and today we are joined by Dr. Mark Hyman, who is one of the leaders in teaching people how to apply natural therapies as an alternative to toxic drugs and potentially dangerous surgeries to improve their health. So we are honored and privileged to have him today to discuss this important issue. So welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Mercola.
So let's get back to the topic at hand, which is this issue of food addictions. And I'm wondering what your journey was and how you came to acknowledge or recognize that and develop strategies to address it.
Well, when I worked at Kenya Ranch, I saw a lot of people who wanted to lose weight. And so I began to study obesity and weight loss and understand the biology and biochemistry of metabolism and insulin resistance, and became very aware of this whole phenomena of insulin resistance or pre-diabetes. And then I realized how much insulin was driving fat storage in the body, driving hunger, slowing metabolism, and I wrote a book called The Blood Sugar Solution, which addressed this, and it was really very effective. But then I began to sort of look, and I even talked a little bit about food addiction in there, but I began to really look at the research even more. There was more research that came out in the intervening years since I wrote that book, and I realized that how much the role of sugar, salt, and fat, particularly sugar and refined carbs, have on the brain, and that those substances act just like heroin or cocaine, and that the food industry has deliberately hijacked our taste buds, our brain chemistry, and our metabolism, and has actually led to a nation of people who are addicted in some degree to refined sugars and flours. And that's what's driving so much of the metabolic derangement that makes it very difficult for people to stop eating. And we have a culture, in this culture, of where we blame the fat person. We think, oh, it's your fault you're fat. If you just exercise more and you ate less, like everything would be better, right? It's just about calories in, calories out, energy balance. That's the message from the government. That's the message from the food industry. Just about moderation, exercise more. There's no good and bad foods. And I realized that was just fundamentally not true. And as I began to look at the research by people like Dr. David Ludwig and others, and looking at calories where they actually did holding the calories the same, what we call isocaloric diets, they found profoundly different effects on brain chemistry, metabolism. And it was really the sugar and refined carbs that were spiking insulin, that were driving the fat in the blood and the ketones and the glucose in the blood into the cells, that was making you feel hungry, that was making you store fat, that was slowing your metabolism, and that those actually were leading to this uncontrollable hunger, and that your fat cells literally became hungry, and your brain chemistry got deranged, and then it lights up the same areas in the brain as cocaine or heroin. So I began to look at this research and realize, we need to reframe the story, and we need to put people on a medical sugar detox to get them reset. It's almost like hitting the reset button, like rehab, sugar rehab.
Sure. So what can you describe some of the symptoms that of the physical and psychological food addiction, and how that relates to being obese or not?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really striking, when you think about how people behave around food. I mean, nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, I want to be fat. I'm just going to pig out today and eat junk. What happens is their body takes over and it drives their behavior. So the question is, does the behavior drive the biochemistry, or does the biochemistry drive the behavior? In other words, are you overeating because you're emotionally disturbed and it's your behavior driving, or is your biochemistry hijacking your behavior? And I think in most cases it's the biochemistry hijacking the behavior. Yes, sometimes we're stressed and sometimes we'll crave junk because we're stressed, and that's true. But for the most part, I think we're understanding that it's a biological addiction. So the definitions, for example, are, do Do you eat foods that you crave even when you're not hungry? Do these foods affect your quality of life and you keep doing them even if it's affecting your school or work performance? Do you feel like you need more and more of these foods to feel better, or just to have the same, keep your feeling the same? Are these foods something that you can't feel like you get enough of? So there's a whole questionnaire in my book, The 10-Day Detox Diet, which goes through exactly how do you diagnose it. And a lot of this has come from Kelly Brownell, who's a professor, was at Yale, now is at Duke, who's written a lot about food addiction, and this has validated food addiction scales. But it's very much like alcohol addiction or heroin addiction. In fact, when they looked at brain chemistry, they found that the addiction in the brain was like heroin or cocaine. When they did animal studies, they found that the rats would seek sugar far more than cocaine. If they were already addicted to cocaine, they'd go after the sugar. They work 8 times harder to get the sugar than cocaine. Even if you're already addicted to cocaine, they would go for the sugar. It's that powerful. Or even when they were shocking them with electric shocks, they'd keep eating the sugar. That's what happens to humans. We keep eating the junk, even though it's making us fat and sick, affecting the quality of our life, giving us diabetes, making us feel awful. We keep eating it because it's a biological addiction. And
there's also with casein and gluten, which is a major component of wheat, you got the receptors.
That's right.
The opioid receptors, which are stimulated. So that's another component of the addiction process.
Exactly. That's so right, Dr. Mercola, because in my book, The 10-Day Detox Diet, I explain how we have to also get people off of dairy and gluten initially, because what happens is there's caseomorphins and gluteomorphins that act in the brain like opium and keep people addicted. If you ever try to get a kid off of wheat, they go crazy. They're like running to the cabinets, climbing over everything. They're like really having a withdrawal. And I think we see this withdrawal phenomenon. I mean, that's even true with sugar. We see in animals and humans, when you stop it, they go through a withdrawal like they're withdrawing from cocaine or heroin.
Yeah, and I remember not too long ago, well, maybe 30 years now, when I first encountered this information, and I had to contemplate the possibility of going off of wheat, and I said I'd rather die. And I think many people feel similarly. Now, of course, once you do that, it's easy, but it's really a major challenge for many people. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's just staples in our culture. The things that we eat are dairy, wheat, and sugar. Those are the staples of our diet. They're in everything. And it's unfortunate because we're eating these foods that are literally creating this chronic disease epidemic. And when we get people off of them, it doesn't take long. When you have a medically designed sugar detox, like a sugar rehab, and you reset your body, it's amazing how quickly the cravings go away, your energy comes back. We did this with a group of 600 people, and in 10 days, not only did they lose about 4,000 pounds, not only did they drop about 2 inches off their waist, and their blood sugar dropped about 20 points, their blood pressure an average of 10 points. But we did a medical symptom questionnaire where it's like a review of systems where we checked all their symptoms and scored them. They had an overall reduction of all symptoms from all diseases by 62% in 10 days. That's migraines, joint pain, insomnia, depression, postnasal drip, acne, you name it. They got better in 10 days because when you put in real food, because this is the big insight in functional medicine, that food's not just calories, it's not just energy to fuel your body, but it's information, right? It gives instructions that turn on and off genes, that regulate hormones, that regulate immune system function, that if you do the right thing and put in the right healing foods and you take out the foods that are harmful, your body will actually reset very quickly. Yes, indeed. So what are the most addictive foods that you've encountered in your experience, and the best ways to avoid those? Well, I think the two are the biggest things that we're eating, right? So if you look at the consumption, we have about 152 pounds of sugar per person we're eating per year, and about 146 pounds of flour. You combine that's about a pound of flour and sugar for every man, woman, and child in America. That's a pharmacologic dose of sugar and flour. In fact, flour, white bread, even whole wheat bread, that has a higher glycemic index than table sugar, right? It's like 80 for table sugar and 100 for white bread. So yeah, actually, both of those things are driving the addiction. They're driving the imbalance. They're leading to this overactive addiction center in the brain. So those would be number 1 and 2. The third thing that is in everything, Dr. Mercola, is MSG. And I know you've written a lot about this, but MSG
is monosodium glutamate. It's got 50 different names that are hidden in foods, whether it's autolyzed yeast extract or, all kinds of weird, crazy names that you don't recognize. And they hide it. And the reason they put it in is a flavor enhancer, but it's also highly addictive. And it drives the overconsumption of foods and sugar, and it raises insulin by 3 times. And insulin's the fat storage hormone, the hunger hormone. So when you're eating these processed foods, they're all full of MSG, and you don't even know you're getting it, and it's just making you eat more. I remember this nutritionist told me she went to Samoa, where they have the fattest people in the world, 90% are diabetic, and she said the breakfast consisted of ramen noodles with Kool-Aid powder and MSG powder on top of it. So that explains it all. We think we have to go to all these specialists and see all these doctors and treat everything individually. We don't treat the symptoms, we treat the system in functional medicine. So if you treat the system by eating real whole food and getting rid of the crap, and I call it FLC syndrome, right? When you eat crap, you feel like crap. You have FLC when you feel like crap. And really, many people walk around with that, and by resetting your diet for 10 days, you then get to see how good you can feel. Then you can decide, okay, then I don't care, I'm just going to keep eating junk because I want to. That's your choice. But most people don't realize how few days away they are from health and happiness, how quickly their body can heal and repair and reset.
One of the books that one of your 8 New York Times bestsellers was the 10-day detox diet. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if you can describe that a little bit and how you begin to use that for a weight loss program.
Sure. I wanted people to have a very simple, doable program that was delicious, easy to do, that got them quick results. And I realized that if people were struggling with food addiction, any level, and you can have a mild form or a more severe form, and there's a questionnaire in the book that shows you sort of how do you tell where you are in that spectrum. But if you have any level of that, it's very hard to kind of incrementally change and see a benefit. If you're like drinking, a liter of soda a day and a loaf of bread, and you just quit the liter of soda, you're still not going to see a big benefit. So it's like a reset. And so I figure people can do anything for 10 days, and I think they get excited about it. They do it together in community. And what you do essentially is you eat real food. So you get off of processed foods, you get off of junk food, you get off of flour and sugar. It's actually also a grain-free diet. I know you've written the grain-free diet book that you wrote many years ago, which I think was really ahead of its time. And we really get people off of all the things that are inflammatory, get them off of dairy, and get them eating real food: fish, chicken, good quality meats, nuts and seeds, good quality fruit, lots of vegetables. And it's mostly a plant-based diet. I call it a pegan diet as opposed to a vegan or paleo. It's like, it's basically mostly vegetables and fruits and plants with some good quality protein. And then what happens when you take all the junk is the body resets very quickly. You go through maybe a day or two withdrawal, and then all the cravings stop, your energy comes up, you drop tons of fluid. And some people lost 25 pounds in 10 days who were just full of inflamed fluid. And then we get people doing some daily practices.
That's mostly water weight, though. That's not fat loss.
No, right. That's mostly water. But people do lose fat too, and you quickly shift from fat storage to fat burning. That's what's so fascinating when you look at the science. When you have a very low glycemic diet, what happens is that your body switches very quickly from fat storage to fat burning, even on the same calorie amount. So it's not a calorie-restricted diet. It's not a volume-restricted diet. And what I realize is people can't control how much they eat, but they can control what they eat. So if you change what you eat, automatically your body changes, and automatically you regulate your appetite, and automatically you change how much you eat without having to think about it. It's not weighing and measuring and portioning. It's like, I eat tons of food. And I love food, but if I choose the right foods, I can eat whatever I want. I had last night I had chicken and a kale salad, and I had 2 servings of everything, and then there was a fruit salad with some little dark chocolate, and after, I don't worry about it because my body knows what's right for it. And that's where I want people to get to is actually listening to their body and knowing what it's saying and actually having it saying the right things. And that can happen very quickly. So each day has a theme. It really teaches you the principles of how do you rebuild your life, not just around the food, but around how your thoughts are, and you're dealing with stress and exercise and dealing with community and connection. How do you design your life for success? Because, a lot of us are set up for failure. We have junk in our kitchens. We have junk in our workplaces. We don't set up our environments for success. We don't make it easy for us to sort of exercise. So there's ways to design your life that make sense. Now, here's an example. Like I worked all day yesterday and a friend invited me for dinner. Well, like I wanted to exercise between work and dinner, but it was kind of a pain. So I basically rode my bike to their house and then I got a ride back. So I was able to do a great bike ride, get there for dinner, have my exercise, and I had a friend bring clothes over. So I kind of designed my day so that I actually could fit an exercise. Like that's an extreme example, but if you're creative, you can come up with all sorts of ways to design your life for health. I love to play. I really hate to exercise, so you won't find me in a gym very often. But I love to play. So it's the summer. I'm riding my bike all over the hills in the Berkshires. I play tennis. I play basketball with my son. I go running in the woods with my dog. I do a lot of varied exercise. I do a lot of yoga. I find that really helpful and for sort of many, many different reasons. And I do some high-intensity interval training where I'll do 7 or 10-minute high-intensity bursts of interval training with lots of sort of like calisthenics type stuff where I'm doing push-ups and chin-ups and triceps. And that's really effective in actually speeding up my metabolism. Actually, I'm 54 and I'm leaner and fitter and more muscular than I was 10 years ago, which is fascinating to see by just changing my diet and changing my routine a little bit. It's not even a lot, and I'm super busy, so like, if I can do it, anybody can do it.
And how do you integrate the exercise? Do you have a specific structure that you recommend for your detox program?
Yeah, I think most people aren't doing anything, so I start with people, getting them on just walking, because if you can just do nothing, from doing nothing to walking half an hour a day is a huge incremental benefit, And then I encourage people to start working on interval training, like a high-intensity interval training program, like 7 minutes or 10 minutes. There are different programs out there, like the 7-minute workout. There's Tony Horton's 10-minute workout. There's a lot of options, but it's hard to do because people don't like to push themselves, and it's painful.
Yeah, it hurts.
It hurts, and you get short of breath. But the science behind it is so great that you have to speed up your metabolism. So you can exercise less time and get more benefit and lose more weight and burn more calories while you sleep and be more fit by doing less exercise. So it's really profound.
Once a person is detoxed and they've actually lost their weight or they've reached their goal, what are your suggestions to them to prevent relapse and getting back into those old patterns again?
Well, I think we all are human and we all will slide, and I think that's the beauty of the 10-day detox. It's always something you can go back to and reset. It's like when your computer doesn't work anymore, you just hit the restart button and you reboot. So it's a technique and a tool that you always have that you can reboot. But in the 10-day detox, there's a transition plan that allows you to transition and expand your diet and your lifestyle practices, and it teaches you the basic skills so that you can do this forever. So like I would say, my life is probably, 90-10. 90% of the time I follow this, and then 10% of the time I don't. And that's okay. Like I'll have stuff to drink, or I might have a cup of coffee, or I might, in the summers when I go to Nantucket, I love this ice cream place, so I'll have ice cream once a year or twice a year. Like I don't make myself crazy about it, but I most of the time follow what I know makes me feel good. And at the end of the day, I choose between, do I want to have FLC syndrome and feel like crap? Or do I want to be vibrant and healthy and connected to the things that matter in life? And I think that's really what people have to figure out. What's their purpose? What matters to them? Does it matter to have that cookie and feel good for 2 minutes? Or does it matter for them to have energy and be able to work and fill their purpose on life, to be able to love the people in their life and be connected to them? Well, I mean, what really is it that matters?
So you've got loads of experience. You treated tens of thousands of patients. You've been doing this for a long time, and I'm wondering if there's any pearls of wisdom that you've acquired that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, there's just some really simple principles. I mean, I think people should just choose real food. People need protein for breakfast, whether it's a protein shake, whether it's, eggs or nuts and seeds. That's really essential to start the day. I think people shouldn't eat before they go to bed. I think that's a bad idea. That'll cause weight gain. I think people should eat food that's very low glycemic. And I think, some people can tolerate some grains, but I think really minimizing processed food, minimizing sugar, minimizing grains makes a huge difference for so many people with all sorts of chronic health issues. And I think making it fun, finding community to do it with. I think that's the part where we worked with a church. I got Rick Warren's church to do this program, healthy living program together, and they had small groups. And I realized that people, obesity is contagious, disease is contagious, but so is health. And so we got them doing it together, and through that community support, this group of 15,000 people in the church lost £250,000 in a year by following these principles. But it worked because they were able to change their behavior because they had somebody to help them. They had an accountability partner, they had a group, they had feedback, they had support. When things got hard, someone was there. When they wanted to celebrate, someone was there. And so really it's a very profound strategy, which is how do you connect for success, that we really get healthy together. And I think that's really important. It's hard to do on your own. The culture works against it. But if you find friends, partners, whether it's a Facebook group, whether it's somebody in your family, whether it's someone at work, someone in school, someone in your community, faith-based community, find somebody who you can work with to connect with around getting healthy, and doing it together makes all the difference in the world.
If someone was interested in any more details, do you have a website for the detox diet? Obviously, the book is available, I'm sure, at Amazon and stores. So what do you recommend?
So they can go to 10daydetox.com, which is about the book, or they can go to drhyman.com, and they'll find all the information they need. That's drhyman.com and 10daydetoxdiet.com. And it's
10 with the numbers?
Yeah, 10, the number 10.
Well, thanks for all the information, for all the work that you do in helping move the culture to the right direction. I know you're really effective in the media and are able to influence it, and actually in political areas too. I've been impressed with your ability to really connect at those levels and make a difference. So really appreciate all the work you're doing in those arenas.
Thanks, Dr. McCall. It's all exciting. We're actually starting an institute at the Cleveland Clinic on functional medicine. We're going to be doing more research and education, training doctors, and it's this whole field is starting to shift.